We were in a store, and a guy in that store told us to put our uniforms on. What the hell are you talking about? He says, the USA is in a war with Japan. We couldn't believe it.
Well, our country was attacked. It's different. It wasn't like Korea or Vietnam. We was attacked. And, you know, it was a feeling that maybe we just dumb country people, but where I come from, but a lot of us volunteered.
Who would like to volunteer for the Tank Corps? Who would like to volunteer for the Air Force? Who would like to volunteer for Navy or whatever? And then they said, who would like to volunteer for the Airborne? So we said, what the hell is the Airborne? Nobody ever heard of it.
We came from a small town, and 3 fellows in that town that were 4F committed suicide because they couldn't go at different time.
I did things. I didn't do them for medals. I didn't do them for accolades. I did them because it's what had to be done.
The guy said, well, you jump out of airplanes. You know, you got all your Army equipment, and you jump out of airplanes to fight the enemy. They said, go to hell. Nobody put up their hands. And then, I don't know what it was, brought it up, but the guy giving the speech was saying, but you get paid $50 a month more. So that made it $100.
Hey you guys, so as you can probably guess it, this is the start of our unit on World War II, and today we are going to be learning about Pearl Harbor. You just got done listening to some of the veterans of World War II. Now these were not veterans of Pearl Harbor, but they were veterans of World War II. And what they were sharing with you was their experiences back home after Pearl Harbor was attacked and the effect that it had on our country. And this is why I take our veterans in such high regard, because watching those videos and listening to them, I get such a great sense of patriotism from them. And I'm honored to have people like that who believe so strongly in our country that are willing to put their lives at risk for our needs and for our freedoms. It truly is an amazing thing, and we are blessed to have these types of people among us all the time. Whenever these tragedies happen, you see this great sense of patriotism come out, and it's a wonderful thing to experience, especially to hear it from their own voices. But before we get started with our unit on Pearl Harbor, I want you to take a minute. I want you to answer this quick poll question. This is a quick pre-assessment to show me what you already understand about Pearl Harbor. So all you have to do is just touch on it and to choose which option you think Pearl Harbor was. Was it the start of World War II? Was it about a need for oil? Or was it about Germany attacking us? Choose one of those answers and then continue on with the video. So here I am around this beautiful satellite image of Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. And I want you to notice a couple of things. Look at the terrain behind Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor is that little red marker right there. That's where it's located. But look at the terrain behind it and off to the sides of it. It's very mountainous. So it was well protected. It's also well inland, away from the ocean. So it's also still well protected. This is what made this attack on Pearl Harbor so devastating to America, is that we didn't see it coming. It was a surprise attack. And Pearl Harbor, we never thought could ever be attacked because it was far away from everything and it was so well protected. It really did shock America. So before moving on, take a minute, touch on this satellite image and check it out for yourself. Pinch in, zoom in, check out different angles to really get an understanding of Pearl Harbor, its location, and the terrain that's around it. So you guys, here I am standing in front of the U.S.-Arizona Memorial in Honolulu, Hawaii. And one thing you should know about Pearl Harbor on this attack is that the U.S.-Arizona was the one battleship that was fatally sank by Japanese forces. But we're going to get to that in a minute. What you're going to do now is you are going to learn a little bit about Pearl Harbor, the causes and the effects, and an overview of Pearl Harbor. It would be a really good choice on your part to take some notes as you're watching the instructional video that I'm going to show you in a minute, because afterwards you're going to be taking an assessment on what you just watched. And those notes that you have taken, you can absolutely use during the assessment. If at any time during the video you need to rewind it, please do so. Or if you have to rewatch it again, absolutely, please do. Here's the instructional video here. You can go ahead and touch on it to watch it and take some good notes. And then when you're ready, you can move on to our assessment. Now that you guys have finished watching your overview on Pearl Harbor and kind of going over the causes and the effects of it, hopefully you took advantage of the Twitter feed and checked out a lot of the great resources and the links that were available about Pearl Harbor, checked out the National Pearl Harbor Museum in Hawaii, and checked out some of those cool photos to give you even more knowledge and information that was on the video. You are ready and you are set for assessment time. Go ahead and just touch on this link right here to go ahead and take your assessment. Now, as you can see, I am standing inside of the U.S.-Arizona Memorial, and on the wall behind me are the names of all the men that are currently entombed inside of the U.S.-Arizona. It is such an emotional thing for me to think that here are these men that are on the U.S.-Arizona, and they died inside of it because they couldn't be reached. Imagine being at Pearl Harbor at this time, and you are trying to rescue the men that are inside of the U.S.-Arizona, and you can hear them banging on the walls, but there's nothing you can do to reach them. Imagine that feeling that these people had to go through all their lives knowing that their brothers died inside of this ship and are currently entombed in there. All of those names represent the men that are inside of the U.S.-Arizona. It really is an emotional thing. To understand how devastating this fatal explosion was on the U.S.-Arizona, check out this short video here, and it will show you the explosion of when the Japanese bomb landed on the U.S.-Arizona and it exploded. And then down here is just a wonderful and emotional video to watch of people's reflections of when Pearl Harbor happened. These are people who witnessed Pearl Harbor. They were either civilians on Hawaii or they were veterans themselves. Just two absolutely amazing videos. So go ahead and take a minute and watch these two videos to get a true understanding of the devastation of Pearl Harbor and how it affects people even to this day and why we really need to remember it. Now, the day after Pearl Harbor was attacked, FDR gave his famous Day of Infamy speech, and you can see that speech here. You're going to be doing an activity to FDR's speech and to President Bush's speech after 9/11 in a minute. But what I would like you to do is watch this video and listen to how FDR delivers his speech. Listen to his emotion. Listen to his passion, because in a moment you're going to be reenacting these speeches for me. So what you're going to be doing right now is you are going to be reenacting two different speeches. You're going to be reenacting FDR's speech that he gave after Pearl Harbor, and you're going to be reenacting President Bush's speech that he gave after 9/11 happened. For a copy of the speeches, please come see me, and I will give you a copy of the speeches to use during class, but you need to return them before you leave. Now, the things that you're going to include in your podcast, because you're going to make 3 different podcasts for me today. The first one is going to be a podcast of your reenactment of FDR's speech, the second one of President Bush's speech after 9/11, and then the third one is this. And please take some notes on what's going to be expected of you. You are going to compare and contrast the 2 different speeches. You're going to give me an introduction and an occurrence overview of what the speech was about. You're going to then talk about the damages that America sustained. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to talk about what is America's response to this attack. What is it that we plan on doing, or what is it that is wanted to be done? What is the request that's being made to Congress? And then the last thing, I skipped E, don't know what happened there, but you're going to talk about religious implications if there were any. Now, please keep in mind, as you are making these podcasts, the first 2, when you're reenacting the speeches, you have to be passionate. Pretend that you're presidential. You are trying to get the country behind you. And you can only do that by showing passion. If you're being monotone and you're just in there saying, the Day of Infamy was a horrible day, no one's going to get behind you. You have to be passionate. This is a reenactment. And then for the third one, when you're talking about the comparing and the contrasting, don't just give me facts. That's not what a podcast is. A podcast is a conversation. You are going to be talking to me, and you're going to make it a conversation. Don't just sit there and say, Pearl Harbor happened on December 7th, and September 11th happened on September 11th. No, you need to make it a conversation. You need to pretend that you're on the radio, and you have hundreds of thousands of people tuning in to hear your amazing analysis of these 2 speeches. So please make sure you write down what's expected of you in that third podcast. Now, I understand that sometimes comparing and contrasting things can be a little bit difficult. And if you're more of a visual person or a concrete person like I am, something like this can actually be very helpful. What I did is I took both of their speeches and I put them into a Wordle. I like using Wordle because words tend to stand out in certain areas, and that helps me analyze and compare 2 different types of text. This first one is a Wordle that I created from FDR's speech. And the second one is a wordle based on President Bush's speech after 9/11. What you can do is you can touch on it to open it, and I would take a screenshot of it so you can have it to look at a little bit more closely if you need it later. But look at it, what words tend to stand out? What similarities do you see? What differences do you see? And then down here, President Bush's speech. Touch on it to open it, take a screenshot of it, and then really do check it out. What similarities do you see between the two? What differences do you see? And that could actually be quite a bit of help. All right, it's podcast time. So what you're going to do for me, if you're on an iPad, you're going to use this app here called Opinion. This is what it looks like on your iPad. Now, if you're on a laptop, don't worry. What you're going to do is you're simply going to use QuickTime to make an audio recording. Let me say that again. You're going to make an audio recording. But for my Opinion people, go ahead and check out this quick tutorial on how to use the Opinion app. I love the Opinion app because it's set up to be a blog, but for podcasts. And when you watch this video, I'm going to show you some very simple editing that you can do, some of the features, but there's a very specific way I want you to set up your Opinion app. So please make sure you watch the video and you follow the instructions completely. All of you, you're going to make 3 different podcasts for me. The first one is going to be a reenactment of FDR's speech. The second one of Bush's speech after 9/11. And then the third one is going to be a conversation that you are discussing the comparing and the contrasting of the 2 speeches. Please be passionate in your podcast because that's what a podcast is. It's theater of the mind. Create that image for me. Get me excited. I hope you guys have enjoyed the lessons that we created for you on Pearl Harbor. Good luck with everything, and I can't wait till we move on to Japanese internment coming up next.